Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, no matter what time of day it is where you're at, whether you're watching us on the live broadcast or on the replay, I want to thank you for joining us today on this episode of the CVC Home Service Success Network. And every single week, we try to put together a broadcast, a show to bring you ideas, concepts, things that you can use in your own business to move to the next level. In fact, today's guest said he started something listening to one of our person we were interviewed that's on this show. So to tell you a little bit about today's guest, his name is Jeremy Maynard, and he owns Tristan's Chimney Service. It's up in Newland, North Carolina. And unless you're from North Carolina, you probably don't know where Newland is because, quite basically, it's in the middle of nowhere. It's not far from Boone, North Carolina. It's between Boone and Asheville to give you kind of the geographic location. And it's also south of Johnson City, Tennessee. So Jeremy Maynard is our guest. And I brought Jeremy on today because so often we go and we hear about somebody like Tommy Mello that's done all these things out there in the real world. But what I wanted to do was bring somebody on that was in the midst of making major changes in his business, going through the pain of these changes. And that's what we're going to talk to Jeremy about today is some of the pains that he's been through. I was honored because in June of last year, Jeremy had me come to his business and I spent 2 days there analyzing that business. And I wrote an analysis report and a strategic plan for Jeremy to look at. And to give you an idea, it was 89 pages and about 30,000 words were in that report. Okay. So our different interviewers here are myself today. We have Cheryl Eisenhower. We have Josh Kelly as usual. And we have the newest member of the CVC Success Group team, Noah Biswell, who just passed his certification as a service type coach and consultant. So Noah, welcome aboard, buddy. We're glad to have you on board. And with that, we're going to rock and roll. So Jeremy, first question to you. You're a second generation business owner. Your dad, Rick, started this business many years ago, and I presume you came in, worked for him, and ended up buying the business, and Rick now works for you as your warehouse manager. But what was it? Where was your magic moment that you decided it's time that I want to change what I'm doing and go to an entirely new level? When did it hit you, brother?
Um, I'm unsure when exactly it hit, when I moved back from the West Coast, I was really motivated to, get back on my feet, and I had that motivation. So that was really the spark. He didn't have a lot of branding or a logo, and so I started there, when it was his business still.
Yeah, I got you covered. And I can remember you were sitting at a National Chimney Sweep Guild convention presentation last year when another person who's a client, person I've done work with, Anthony Valerio, you were sitting in that seminar and you heard Anthony tell about the transition he had went through in his own company. And it was the end of that presentation when you came up to me and said, hey, I guess we better go ahead and get you up here. So was that possibly something that did that light your fuse listening to Anthony there?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that was a good memory because actually before his thing, we talked and I was like, yeah, I don't know if now's a good time, and I was putting it off, and I was like, well, I just did this other thing. And I got a bunch of tasks I need to do for that. And, after Anthony's speech, I was like, well, there seems to be a common narrative. I got Jerry out there and he gave me a big book of things to do. And I did the big book of things. And then, good things happen. So I like to learn from other people. That way I don't have to learn it myself.
Dead on the money, brother. Dead on the money. And that's how it often starts. We see somebody, but so often, Jeremy, people listen to a presentation but they go back home and they never do nothing. That's just the same old thing over and over again. So that's the thing about it. I think a lot of people, Anthony is becoming probably one of the biggest role models that people are looking at in this industry. He's been in the business just a few short years, and he's really done remarkable things up there in Rochester. Mm-hmm. So, Josh, what about you? What would be the first question you would ask Jeremy today as we go through this conversation?
So it's going to be about technology. What technology have you embraced to take you to this next level?
So yeah, that's a good question. So I started out, really with, a white truck, just like everybody else, with lettering on it. And that me and my dad worked in the truck. We had the carbon copy inspection forms, that we always used to use. So that was my first order of business, is to get a good system. So the first thing that I tried was Service Pal. And that got me to 3 trucks. It's a really good, good for that. I think it was a pretty good system. So then, after that, we started, looking into a system that could be more robust for a bigger company, because that was always my goal. And so we learned about Service Titan, and then we switched over to that at about 3 trucks. And so we started doing that. And I've always been kind of, a gamer in my youth, so working on systems was pretty easy to me. So I don't mind spending a lot of time developing the Service Titan. I know it's a bear sometimes, but yeah, so that was Service Titan. And then other technologies, recently AI has been really good. Chat GPT is great for a lot of good things. And then we also use Rilla Voice for AI, virtual ride-alongs, which has been good for helping hold our technicians really accountable, as well as making sure they say the same things that I want them to say. But yeah, that's about it for technology for now. Yeah.
So, Josh, does that answer your question, or anything you would like to ask as a follow-up?
No, that's what I wanted to know.
Okay, fantastic. And one of the things is, Jeremy, you talked about going into Service Titan, and you hear a lot of people complain about how difficult Service Titan is. And I remember one of the statements you made me, that you enjoyed pain, that you enjoyed a punch in the gut. Am I remembering correctly our conversation?
Yeah, well, yeah, I appreciate it when people are honest.
Yeah.
So if that causes some pain, so be it. And so yeah, I mean, Service Titan is Josh once said it's a blank slate, and so when they give it to you, it's you can build it however you want, and that's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
So.
So, Noah, we're talking here. It's your turn coming up next. And you grew up in a family, so you decided you don't want to take over your parents' business. You decide you want to do things differently, and you don't want to be involved in what they were doing. So, but from the aspect of a son running into it, I think you can probably sympathize what it would be like if you had to take over your dad's business and had to work with your dad, and you're shaking your head. Yeah. So we both know where we're coming from with this one. So what questions would you ask Jeremy here? And we're talking about Jeremy Maynard, not your dad, Jeremy Biswell here. Okay.
No, I'm so glad you said that, Jerry. And it actually leads right into my question. Coming from a family where I didn't end up taking the family business, but was always pushed to that idea as a kid. A lot of questions that I have in my business classes, and really like to see those like firsthand experiences from a person who, has taken over a family business. Where are those? Obviously, you are growing your trucks, you're getting involved in more technology, as you said with Joshua's question. So things are getting bigger, right? And things are changing. So how are you, I guess, honoring those original core values and like even mission statement of, what your dad had started here, while also being able to grow and take it to the next level and really see that these things like Service Titan and more trucks and more people are necessary if you want to continue growing?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's really about having a strong team behind you, I suppose. Making sure that they do what they say they're going to do. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I think so. I think my question more too was, was there any kind of fallback as well, or maybe, you had to talk with your dad through the idea that like we are going to be approaching it in a different way? And at least when I talk to my dad, right, because they're in the process of selling their company, right, one big thing is like, like this is you created this is your baby. And so the way that you have ran it so far and the way that you're seeing it is probably one of the like only ways that you can really conceptualize like this is how this business works, right? So what does that look like, talking through that, and also just being able to honor the original way it was ran, while also, like I said, just making those next steps for growth?
Yeah. So yeah, we live in Newland, and it's a small mountain community, and where it gets around pretty quick, so that's definitely most important is understanding that, service is first for sure. Because that'll get around pretty quick around here.
No, let me add this in on your question. And because I actually had a conversation with his dad, Rick, and Jeremy wasn't involved. We were sitting out in his warehouse, and I asked him, I said, well, Rick, tell me what you think about the things that Jeremy is doing. I mean, let's face it, you got me. I'm up here right now. My job is telling him what he does right and what he does wrong. And Rick was quick to tell me that Jeremy was taking that business to a level that he could have never done. He could have never had the drive. He would have never had the energy. He would have never had the knowledge, the skill to take it to where Jeremy wants to take it to. And he expressed to me the pride he had in Jeremy and the way that he was taking it onward. And it's very tough, like I said, when you sell a business, because Cheryl's going through that at this point with a business that's going to someone else. And now she has to sit back and let this person make the decisions going forward, which I've had to do watching her take a business I owned, and I had to take a back seat and just let her go. So it's admirable, but I think you always, and I know your parents would always be very proud of what you do and the way you go forward with that. But yeah, it's tough for someone else to take over, and all of a sudden you don't have the control. So Cheryl, what about you? What would you ask Jeremy?
Okay, the title that we came in with today was the next level requiring moving out of your comfort zone. And so did moving out of that comfort zone do, as Jerry says, the pain of change? This is on the personal side. Jeremy, is there a pain to the change?
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah. I mean, it's a lot of work to put in to the business, So yeah, I mean, it affects all other things, how much time you put in after hours and how much time you take away from your family and your friends, and that's part of it. No days off, that's just, I mean, that's just part of it. And you have to have that, go back to Noah's thing, you got to have the vision and the understanding to know that what the business is capable of, and sometimes you need people to come in like Jerry, who's seen a lot of different businesses to even further, well, your vision is this big. Well, your vision's got to, and I get that from Tommy Mello. Your vision's got to be so big that it includes all your employees too, and that's meant a lot to me too. And so expanding my vision to include theirs has been important, but my dad is always been a worker, and so he's never really, had the vision to turn it into something that could be a business. And I want to be able to sell it or have, be able to do something else with it other than just earn a paycheck. And that's been a good driving factor for me.
Yep.
Jerry,
Sure.
let me ask one more to piggyback on that.
Go ahead. I was going to say, if you had another follow-up question, go ahead.
Okay, Jeremy, I know it's not been fun. I know where you're heading. You have just only capped the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Would you do it again?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, it's not been like so upsetting and painful, like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. I mean, some things in business are, but that's unavoidable in all kinds of business. It's all in what you want and what makes you happy. I mean, I guess in a business, you could be happy doing, whatever $10 million, $5 million, $50 million, $100,000, as long as you're happy and you're fulfilling your dream. And I guess that's what's important to me, what do you want out of it? That's the most important thing is are you driving the business or is the business driving you? I mean, you don't want it to be backwards, so I enjoy it. I would definitely do it again. I look forward to the future. We're in the middle of a renaming and rebranding, which is pretty exciting. I've had a lot of different coaches come in after Jerry, and so yeah, I'm excited about the future. I'd definitely do it again and look forward to today and tomorrow with the next thing.
Okay. So, Jeremy, I want to deal with something that you've spoken about and I've spoken about here, which is the rebranding. And to be honest with you, I think this is the most courageous thing that is involved, because when you're rebranding, you're going to be giving up a brand that's been built over a number of years in the mountains. You're giving up the name Tristan's, and you're going through selection of a new name, a new logo, rebranding of your trucks, your website, the shirts, the business cards, everything, the Facebook, everything's going to be changing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So can you tell folks what that's like to go through this? Because this is definitely, in my opinion, the most courageous move I've seen you make is this rebranding move.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. I've gotten over the excitement of Service Titan, I think, at this point. And so I'm ready to move on to the next thing. And my dad definitely grew it for many years, and Tristan's Chimney came from my niece. That's where the name came from. And it has a lot of sentimental meaning behind it, the colors, are from the local college, Appalachian State. And so there's a reason why it doesn't stand out there. The name's not really memorable and doesn't really convey exactly what we do. So there's that. And then the logo is really nothing but a stock image that you can just get on the internet. So the branding is not very strong, and it's got me to where this point. But what's going to get me to the next point? You know, it's like I've already got Service Titan, you know, which is going to grow with me forever. Now, what's the next thing that's going to grow with me forever? You know, is Tristan's Chimney with the stock logo going to, you know, get me there? Probably not.
Well, you know, it kind of goes back to the old saying, I forget who said it, but they say, what got you here ain't going to get you there, or isn't going to get you there. And that's kind of what you're going through. Mm-hmm. So I know you have engaged Dan Antonelli's company, Kick Charge, on doing this. What drove you to go to Dan Antonelli and commit for this expense? Was it talking to any certain person? Was it hearing someone? I mean, we recently had another guest, Mike Gidrich, on here, who's in your Freedom Group, who went through this with his honeydew and home services. Or I forget exact. You know, he does all types of home repairs and that type of stuff. So when did it hit you? I'm going to contact Dan Antonelli. What drove you to do that?
Gosh, it's I just have an instinct. I'm like, well, I guess I should just do this now. You know, it was like you at Anthony. You know, I was like, well, I guess now's just the time. You know, and I just have that instinct. I was at the Tommy Mello Home Service Freedom Group, and my friend Mike Fazy for Den Defenders in California just went through a rename and rebrand through Dan Antonelli. Did a great job with him. On Duty, Chimney in New Hampshire. Also went through a rebrand through them, and their vans look excellent. And so, you know, it just seems like the right thing to do.
Yeah, I got you covered, brother. And again, I applaud you. This takes courage, Jeremy. In order to do this, it takes a lot of courage. You got to, and that's where I came up with this. Going through a transition like you're going through, and that's what I want people to understand. You got to come out of your comfort zone. You really have got to be able to maneuver through where you're going through. So, Josh, what question would you ask Jeremy? And we're going to go around one more time, Jeremy, so you're aware. So, Josh, what would be your next question for Jeremy here?
One thing you were talking about is, you know, checking on your employees, making sure they're doing. So how are you inspecting for what you expect?
Well, so I've always been like process oriented kind of guy anyways. My former work life, I was in food service. And so, you know, prep work was always super important. And, you know, my mantra in the kitchen was be prepared and stay organized. And that's kind of followed me through this career as well. And then when I transitioned out of the kitchen, I got into really grocery stores for a while, a couple years, and really understand the process really well. And then so once I got into the Chimney, I was already the technician. And so following the process has always been super important because, again, I'm a gamer. And so, you know, you have to do this task and then this task and then this task. So I was trained at a young age to follow processes. And then so for me, following it has been pretty easy. So transitioning to employees to follow it has been, you know, been a little bit different, you know, because we're all human. So you have to have processes in place to make sure that they do what they say they're going to do. So Service Titan has been really helpful for me for that because I just make a bunch of forms and have SOPs and have them attach pictures for each step of the process that I want them to be accountable for, and then have that tied to their performance pay. And then, if they have buy-in, if they understand why they're supposed to do what they're supposed to do, which is part of our mission statement, going back to Noah's thing, I'm process. It's all about process. And so if they're not following the process, they probably don't understand why they're supposed to follow it, So, and so Service Titan's been super helpful for that. Following the SOPs, making sure that they follow instructions, and then, making sure that they, it affects their paycheck. If not,
So, Josh, one of the questions I asked you years ago when you were implementing Service Titan was, how come you're not having no trouble, Josh? Because everybody else is pulling their hair out. And Jeremy, I'm sure you've seen this too. But Josh used to tell me, well, Jerry, the reason is I speak geek. So, Jeremy, do you speak geek also? Is that one of the reasons you've been able to maneuver through this challenge?
Well, yeah, definitely. I mean, I speak geek for sure. But it's there's so much great free knowledge out there. I think it's important not to get task saturated, and implement one thing at a time. You don't have to be overburdened by doing a bunch of random things all over the place. Do one step of the process until next thing you know, you've built the whole house. You build the foundation for it. You don't build the roof and then you go over here, you build this wall, you go over there, you do that. You got to build it up, Yeah.
So, Josh, any other questions for Jeremy?
Yeah. Do you have any books that you've read that have been instrumental in this process?
Oh, yeah. I mean, gosh, I guess the best on process. I mean, Audible's been great, and leaders or readers. I've always heard, I guess, and I don't have a lot of time for reading, but I have a lot of time driving around. I tell you what. And so, while you're driving around listening to podcasts, make a task. You say, oh, that's a good idea. Make a task. That's a good idea.
Some of those podcasts, like the Service Titan one, and there's another one I listen to, when they like with Goddell, I think it is one of the main people, and man, some of the stuff they do just like blows your mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so I mean, so as far as specific books, all of Mike Michalowicz's books, the Pumpkin Plan, all that stuff is great. As far as processes go, I mean, Gino Wickman, all of his traction books, I mean, it's got that on lockdown. I mean, that guy's a genius for sure. For business kind of stuff, my favorite books for business related stuff was the Go Giver series. It taught me a lot about how to be a good business owner, and make sure that, you're not just focused on the profits and the numbers. While that's extra important to make sure that you can afford Dan Antonelli and you can afford Service Titan and you can afford the market, you got to understand your numbers, but it's definitely not the most important thing. Creating a relationship, probably the best, and that was helped me more than anything, the Go Giver series. Yeah. So there's so many great books out there, and so much free information. It's just you got to go get it. You got to be hungry. You got to have the vision. You got to not get task saturated. You got it's because it's so much to do. It can be overwhelming. Especially with Service Titan, you don't even know where to start or how to end or how to build it, and then or you might try to hire someone who's not very good at renaming and rebranding. And then you might say, oh, well, gosh, Dan Antonelli's a lot of money. And then you might do a bad job on rebranding and have to do it again. So yeah, you got to do it right the first time. I'm
right. And I'm going to compliment you because, Jeremy, when I walked in your place, two places I saw that I usually have to stress to people, it was, number one, your software, number two, your SOPs. You were in better shape than I usually find. Was everything perfect? No, there were problems there, but those were two areas that really jumped out at me that you had put your work into that. And also in a conquered Service Titan. I remember that was one of my first questions was how you had conquered Service Titan because so many people have problems with that software. So Noah, what will be your last question to Jeremy today? What else would you ask him?
Yeah, and a few comments on some things you've said too, actually.
Yeah.
First of all, I love that you're an audiobook person. I think there's so much power in that. And I'm definitely one of those people who feels like, oh, I'm always so busy. I never have time for audiobooks. And then I think of Spotify actually does a Wrapped at the end of the year. And I'm a big music person, have a lot of friends that are, and we all get so pent up in this number of like, oh my gosh, we listened to 40,000 minutes of music this year. Yeah. And I get to thinking like, oh my gosh, like how many books is that, right? How many opportunities is that missed to learn something new? And then your symbolism with the house through Service Titan, I think it's so cool. Not only as a fellow geek, right? I think it's so great that you talked about, just like being able to master that base level and then finding the things that you can do in Service Titan that they don't even necessarily have forums on or suggest yet, right? Like it's such an open type of software that you can really just go and find your own little niche and create such powerful data with you. But I mean, I can go on a tangent about data as well. My question, aside from that, how are you approaching once the rebrand is in process / you're getting closer to being done? How are you approaching getting that information across to the existing customers and even new customers of, hey, we have rebranded here. Here's where we are now. Here's, these values that we're keeping the same. We're same, we want to offer that same great service, but, we are not this company anymore. This is where we have taken ourselves to the next level.
Good question. So Kick Charge has a part, like a full rollout process that they help you do. Of course, that doesn't include, the cost of new uniforms. Like Jerry said, it's going to be pretty significant, pretty significant, $3-4 grand per wrap truck, new uniforms for everything, new website. And so having enough capital in the bank, that's going to be critical, because you're going to have to hit it hard. Yard signs, you have to have your name everywhere all at once, and I'm going to try and roll it out after sweep season. That way, we get that out of the way and it'll give me enough time to ramp back up. Like, oh, who's this new company? Well, it's really, just a rebrand of Tristan's Chimney. But yeah, that's just, yeah. Does that answer your question?
It does. Yeah. It's a process. And I think it's
yeah. And I'm not really holding back on like marketing or anything like that. Of course not. But as far as like branded shirts and things like that, yeah, I'm holding back a little bit.
Yeah, see if it works. I respect that a lot. I think that's cool.
Well, it's so I have enough to afford when I do come out to hit everything. But Yeah, Kick Charge has a whole thing. But yeah, I'll send out postcards, to the area. Although it's hard to judge good value spend on postcards, but it's really them seeing your name 4 or 5 times in their mailbox, on their Facebook feed, getting them Chimney aware, oh, there's this, because that's the problem. They're only aware of their chimney in September, October, November, or when it's leaking. Right. So yeah, that's going to be a part of it.
Yeah.
So, but this conversation brings up where you're going out, you're getting the skills. Like if we're looking at people on here, I'm the lowest on the geek scale in this whole class. Okay. When I look out there, all 4 of y'all are way up here at the geek level. I'm down here. Okay. It's the way it is. So that's what we use. That's where we go get the expertise we need. And that's what you're doing, Jeremy.
Yeah.
So
I don't know what I don't know.
That's it.
And I'm okay to know that. And I'm okay to reach out to people and be like, I don't know this. Can you teach me?
Yeah. So Cheryl, what else would you ask Jeremy? This will be your last question. So what else would you ask Jeremy today?
Hardeman's statement. Jeremy, I may be wrong. I'm going to qualify that. I'm not very often, but enough. But you don't overthink things. I think you have a step think process. You think about it. You see if you can do it. You step out of your zone and you get it done. I don't think there's a whole lot of time wasted trying to do as Jerry says, aim, 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 then pull the trigger. Am I correct?
Yeah. Definitely, Cheryl.
I mean, that's where a lot of people get really lost in doing something like that, where they overthink each step too much to progress.
Yeah. You could definitely overthink it. Oh gosh, is it the right time? Is it the right company? Do I have enough in the bank? Do I really want to do it? I mean, but yeah, I mean, it goes back to, my geek brain, my gamer brain. It's like, well, I mean, I could do this or this or this. Which one would probably benefit me the best, the company the best, And so, yeah, I make pretty quick decisions, and if they're wrong, I'll know it pretty quickly. and I know too, and I know when, oh man, I messed that up. Gosh, I know not to do that again. But sometimes I have to learn a couple times.
Yeah. So Cheryl, does that deal up with you or anything else?
No, I've always seen people just think too much. I jump off the boat and hope I can swim. And I think that's kind of the same person you are.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't really think about it too much. I just go right at it, yeah, I go right at it.
Yeah. Well, like I said, when I started this is where I compliment Jeremy. I was there in June of last year, wrote an analysis, and Jeremy came out of the gate. And what he's done is he is starting implementing. He's relying on expertise. He's also done something which is getting outside of his industry. A big part of this, I think, is starting to network with people that aren't in the chimney industry. They're in other industries, and I know some of these people that he's networking with and getting great ideas from them. So, this is the whole thing. It's just like I said when we started this out. You have to come out of your comfort zone. It's going to feel like walking on glass sometimes, to quote my departed friend Charlie Quayle. Because often I ask him, he said, Jerry, this is like walking on glass, going into the lean, cutting the waste and everything else. So Jeremy, I want to congratulate you. You're one of the guys that I call one of my trophies that, hey, I feel like I've had an influence on. and you really moved forward. So, Jeremy, I want to congratulate you on where you're going. And I know that you're going to get to that destination. You're going to put in the work. You're going to invest what you got to and make it happen, brother. So, you know, I don't give compliments that are unheralded. Okay. So, folks, I want to thank you first, Jeremy, for taking your time here with us today and sharing your thoughts here on what it's like to come out of your comfort zone. I think anybody that's listening to this, Cheryl, would you agree that people could learn from this and how to move forward?
I do. I think they need to, if they can take what he said today and figure it into the step process and then begin taking the steps. Yes, I think it can.
What about you, Noah, my young friend? What have you picked up from this today?
I think you have the exact correct mindset, and I love just the way that your head works with how you're talking about this. So I'm super excited to see where your company keeps going, and can't wait to see where you go.
Fantastic. Josh, what about you? What did you learn from this today from listening to Jeremy?
That's a pretty good question. I wrote down a few of the book titles real quick, just because I'm always trying to learn. You can actually learn more from those books than I did in 4 years of college. So, you know, I'm a big proponent of those books.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So one thing that Roy House added while we were talking was, so you're saying systems for replication, accountability, elimination of waste drives profits and reduces chaos. And that's exactly what it's all about. So, Jeremy, once again, I want to thank you for being here with us today. This has been a very valuable time for our listeners. And if you're listening to us, hey, I want to extend my thanks to you. I want you to know it's an honor, it's a privilege, and it's a pleasure to have you join us here. Every time we do a broadcast like we do, we try to bring you people that can inspire you. And I think Jeremy Maynard is definitely one of those people. So join us again next time on our next episode of the CBC Home Service Success Network. And let us know here at CBC Success Group, hey, if you need something to get that fire ignited, give us a call. Because I feel like that's one of the things that did ignite Jeremy to take off and lit his fuse, even though he's moving on. He's hit the boosters. The first boosters dropped off.
It's still a big book, Jerry. It's still a big book. There's still a lot of tasks. Okay. That's okay.
Yeah. Hey, it was only
one thing at a time. It doesn't matter if there's 1,000 things on your list. You know, as long as you organize your list and make sure, you know, you're not building the roof first.
That's it. And, you know, it was only 89 pages, and I just did one this week, completed it. Jeremy, it was 101 pages this week, so you know. But, yeah. So appreciate you being here. We'll look forward to joining us on another episode of our broadcast, the CBC Home Service Success Network. Appreciate you.